It begins not in the dramatic tear-strewn climax of the breakup itself, but in the hollow, echoing quiet that settles in its wake. The final words have been spoken or more likely. Left unsighted, the door closes not with a slam, but with a soft, definitive click. In that initial space, there is no alarm. For her, the silence is not an ending, but a new move in a familiar game. She misinterprets the void as a strategic distance, a temporary chasm she knows exactly how to bridge. Her mind, conditioned by past patterns, immediately begins to draft the script. A carefully curated text, laced with just enough casual affection to seem unbothered, yet hinting at a vulnerability meant to tug at your sense of duty. A social media post, a photograph capturing her in a moment of luminous, independent joy, designed to spark the twin demons of curiosity and jealousy. These are not acts of love. They are tactics. The well-worn tools she has used before to pull you back into her orbit. This is the landscape of the illusion. A world built on the unshaken belief in her own control. She plays the game freely here, because from her perspective, the rules were written by her, for her. She flirts with distance, testing its edges, seeing how far it can stretch before you feel the uncomfortable strain and rush to close it. She tests your patience, withholding the reassurance she knows you seek, because the act of you seeking it is a form of validation. She leaves the door half open while pretending it's shut, creating a tantalizing ambiguity that forces you to focus, to question, to invest more mental and emotional energy in deciphering her state. It's a powerful, heady feeling. There is no malice in this, not in the way one might think. It isn't born from a desire to cause pain, but from a deep, insatiable need to feel desired, wanted, and powerful. Your attention, your effort, your pursuit, these were the currencies of her self-worth. Your texts were notifications of your presence in her life. Your worried questions were proof of your investment. Your willingness to chase was the confirmation of her value. She had become accustomed to the sound of your footsteps following her, and in that rhythm she found a symphony dedicated entirely to her. For a while, you gave her that, the constant reassurance, the unwavering effort, the reliable pursuit. You were the steady hand holding the mirror, in which she could always see a reflection of herself as desirable and in command. And so, in these first hours, these first days of silence, she waits. She expects the familiar script to play out. She anticipates the ping of her phone, the notification that you've watched her story, the tentative, "Hey, can we talk?" that signals your return. She believes your silence is a power move, a pause you've instituted to protect your own pride, but one that your ego, your inability to handle the thought of losing her will soon shatter. She is waiting for you to cave, because you always have. The chase, in her mind, is an immutable law of your relationship, a dynamic as fixed as the stars. Her control is not something she questions. It is the bedrock of her emotional reality, what she cannot yet conceive. What her mind refuses to entertain is the possibility that a fundamental shift has occurred. She does not feel the subtle, internal transformation that has taken place within you. She doesn't see the moment you reached your emotional limit, not in a burst of fiery anger, but in a quiet, cold clarity that extinguished the last flicker of hope. She doesn't understand that every chase has a breaking point, a moment when a man simply gets tired of proving his worth to someone who takes it for granted. The safety net she relied upon, woven from your patience and your need for her, has not been taken away for repairs. It has been deliberately, peacefully, and permanently cut down. She stands on the edge, still believing it will be there to catch her, completely unaware that you have finally and forever stopped falling. The game for you is already over. But for her, the first faint tremors of that reality are only just beginning to travel through the ground beneath her feet. The unraveling begins not with a shout, but with a slow, dawning dread that the script has been irrevocably rewritten. The initial silence, which she had mistaken for a strategic pause, stretches from hours into days. It becomes a tangible thing, heavy and unfamiliar. Her first move's the carefully casual text. The vibrant social media posts designed to project a life blissfully uninterrupted are met with a void. Her words, once so potent in their ability to command your attention, now fall into a digital abyss, generating no echo, no ripple. The little scene receipt, once a source of power as she watched you wait for her reply, is now a one-way street leading to a wall of her own making. Her stories are posted, a curated reel of her independence, but the viewer list remains conspicuously absent of your name. The tricks and tactics that once reliably pulled you back into her orbit now fail, their gravity seemingly dissolved. This is when the first true fissure of panic appears, a hairline crack in the foundation of her certainty. It is a quiet, internal tremor. The game, she realizes with a jolt, may no longer be in play. The control she wielded so effortlessly feels slippery, unmoored. Her nervous system, accustomed to the predictable rhythm of your pursuit, her withdrawal, your chase, her reward descends into a low-grade chaos. The dopamine hits of your validation are no longer coming, and the withdrawal is both psychological and physiological. She checks her phone not out of hope, but out of a compulsive need to restore order, to find the evidence that will prove her world is still the one she understands to the outside world. She dons a mask of impeccable indifference. This is the performance of control. She is seen laughing louder in groups, the sound a little too sharp, a little too forced. She posts pictures of herself smiling in sun-drenched cafes, captioned with vague affirmations about new beginnings and self-love. She acts as if life is brighter, more liberated now that you are gone. But the performance is brittle, and she is its most critical and terrified audience. She knows the truth that the lens cannot capture. The laughter dies the moment the camera clicks, leaving a hollow silence in its wake. The affirmations feel like lines from a play she didn't write, in the solitude she once curated as a weapon. The real work of the unraveling begins. Her mind, no longer occupied with planning her next move, turns inward and becomes a torturous cinema. It replays the past on a loop, but the scenes are no longer viewed from her perspective of power. Now she sees the moments with a chilling clarity. She remembers the times you reached out to communicate, your voice calm, and how she met you with a dismissive silence or a cutting remark, believing your calmness was weakness. She recalls the times you tried to express a hurt feeling, and how she twisted it, making your vulnerability the topic of the argument instead of the content of it. She sees the times she created distance just to watch you bridge it, the fleeting thrill of power now replaced by the sickening weight of its cost. The reflection she relied upon, the one that showed her a powerful, desired woman through your eyes, is gone. The mirror has been taken away, and she is forced to stare into the void it once covered. This is the core of the panic. It is not merely the absence of your presence, but the absence of the self that your presence validated. Without you as her audience, her performance has no meaning. The questions she has avoided for years now whisper in the quiet. Who is she without his pursuit? What is her value without his validation? The games were a fortress against this emptiness, and now, with the drawbridge pulled up and the guards gone, she is left alone inside, listening to the echo of her own footsteps. The control she thought was her strength is revealed as a defense mechanism, and it is failing. The unraveling is the painful, inexorable process of her facade coming undone thread by thread, leaving her exposed to the one thing she feared most, the unadorned truth of her own choices, and the terrifying growing conviction that she has, for the first time, truly lost. Regret, when it truly arrives, does not announce itself with grand cinematic tears or dramatic proclamations. It does not scream. It whispers. It is a subtle, corrosive agent that seeps into the foundation of her days, changing their composition from within. It finds her in the quiet, interstitial moments of her life, the stillness of a late-night drive. The pause between songs on a playlist, the second before sleep claims her. It is in these unguarded instants that the full, crushing weight of her loss settles upon her. Not as an abstract concept, but as a visceral, physical ache. It is the moment she rolls over in bed, her hand instinctively patting the space where her phone should be buzzing with a goodnight text from you, and finds only the cold, silent surface of her nightstand. It is the compulsive, almost masochistic scroll through old conversations, Not to rekindle joy, but to feel the ghost of something familiar. To hear the echo of a connection that once was, and to confirm that it was, in fact, real. This is the stage where she moves beyond the panic of a disrupted game and into the sobering reality of its consequence. The frantic energy of the unraveling dissipates, replaced by a heavy, leaden understanding. She realizes, with a clarity that is both brutal and inescapable, that she did not merely lose a man. She lost her peace, the calm, steady presence she took for granted, the emotional anchor you provided. Now feels like oxygen in a room that has become suddenly airless. She finds herself gasping for it in a world that now feels thin and chaotic. Your stability, which she once misinterpreted as a lack of passion or a predictable dullness, is now recognized for what it truly was, a sanctuary. It was the quiet harbor from which she could safely venture out into her own storms, always knowing it was there for her return. Now, the storms rage unchecked, and there is no safe port. The cruelest irony of this phase reveals itself in her attempts to move on. She seeks replacements, distractions, new faces to fill the void. She goes on dates, she flirts, she allows herself to be pursued. But every interaction feels shallow, a pantomime of connection played out on a flat, two-dimensional stage. The new men are scripts and surfaces. They entertain her, but they do not challenge her. They flatter her, but they do not ground her. They desire her, but they do not see her. They lack the specific, hard-earned knowledge of her map of her insecurities, the rhythm of her moods, the understanding of the unspoken things that lay behind her eyes. In their arms, she feels more alone than she ever did in solitude. They become not a solace, but a series of mirrors reflecting back a hollow version of herself, each one a painful reminder of the singular depth she has forfeited. She is haunted, not by your ghost, but by the quality of the presence you offered. It dawns on her that what you gave her wasn't just attention or affection. It was a profound and rare understanding. It was the safety of being fully known, the good, the difficult, the messy and being chosen anyway. Your love was not a performance designed to win her. It was a consistent, abiding state of being that asked for nothing in return but mutual respect. She replays the memories, but now the scenes are different. She doesn't see the arguments. She sees your patience within them. She doesn't remember the distance she created. She remembers the quiet dignity with which you waited for her to return. She sees the look in your eyes, not of anger or need, but of a deep, unwavering care, even when she was at her most difficult. This is the knowledge that truly breaks her. She was in the presence of something sacred and mistook it for something common. This realization crystallizes into a single, devastating truth. She lost access to the best version of herself. With you, she was softer, more grounded, more real. You created a container safe enough for her to shed her defenses and her games. You reflected back to her, not the manipulative, powerful figure she pretended to be, but the vulnerable, worthy woman she could be. Without that reflection, that safe container, she feels herself fracturing back into the anxious, controlling person she was before you. Or perhaps even someone new, someone hardened, cynical, and untrusting. The guilt now joins the regret, a toxic tandem. It is the guilt of knowing she mistreated the one person who offered her unconditional stability, who tried to love her with a steady hand while she was busy testing its strength. She pushed, and she prodded, and she challenged. Believing your love was a limitless resource, a well that could not run dry, she now sits at the edge of that dry well, staring into its depths, understanding with a final, chilling certainty that she poured it all out herself, one thoughtless act at a time. And the one thing she truly needs is the one thing she can no longer reach. While she spirals in the echo chamber of her own regret, a profound and silent transformation is underway within you. This is not a reaction to her. It is a fundamental evolution beyond her. The man who once waited for her text, whose mood would rise and fall with the tide of her attention, has undergone a quiet metamorphosis. The energy that was once siphoned into the exhausting work of proving your worth, of deciphering her silences, of anxiously trying to bridge a gap she was constantly widening, has been reclaimed. It has not vanished. It has been redirected inward, and the alchemy of that redirection is turning pain into power. The initial detachment was not born of bitterness, but of a cold, clear-eyed clarity that finally broke through the fog of hope. It was the realization, simple and undeniable, that love without respect is merely a form of self-inflicted chaos. That chasing someone who does not value you is the deepest form of self-betrayal. This was not an angry epiphany, but a peaceful one, like a puzzle piece clicking into place, and suddenly the entire picture makes sense. The picture was of your own worth, independent of her acknowledgement of it. With this, the need to fight, to plead, to explain, simply evaporated. You stopped trying to fix her and started fixing the part of you that believed you needed her. Validation to be whole. Your energy is no longer a resource she can tap into. It is no longer tied to her reactions, her moods, or her latest test. Where once her silence would have triggered anxiety in you, your silence now is a product of profound focus. You have become a closed system, emotionally self-sufficient. The validation you once sought from her eyes, you now find in the quiet satisfaction of your own purpose. You pour yourself into your work, not as a distraction, but as a channel for your newfound clarity. You invest in your body, your mind, your peace, building a life that is structurally sound from the inside out. No longer dependent on the shaky foundation of her approval, this internal shift manifests externally as a calm, grounded and unreachable presence. You are not cold. You are centered. Not bitter, but resolved. This is what truly terrifies her, your emotional unflappability. You have become a mystery again, reclaiming the masculine energy that first drew her in, the energy of a man who is complete unto himself. Before, she could predict your reactions. She knew which buttons to press to elicit a response, a flicker of jealousy, surge of protective instinct, a plea for connection. Now you are unreadable. Your silence is not a weapon you wield against her. It is the natural byproduct of a mind that is no longer occupied with her. It is not a punishment. It is your peace. It is a statement, louder than any shouted argument, that you have moved on to a different frequency. One she can no longer access. You are no longer accessible through the old channels. Guilt cannot find a purchase on your conscience, because you have accepted your part and learned your lesson. Pity cannot soften your resolve, because you see her struggle not as your responsibility to fix, but as a consequence she must navigate for her own growth. Nostalgia has lost its intoxicating scent. The memories are now data points, lessons learned, not destinations you wish to revisit. You have built an emotional immune system that is resistant to her patterns. The loops she used to spin you in the push and pull, the hot and cold, now break against a wall of serene indifference. You observe her subtle attempts to reconnect the accidental text. The nostalgic song lyric posted online, and you feel nothing but a distant recognition of a pattern you have outgrown. It is like watching a child repeat a game you have long since mastered and lost interest in. This evolution is the ultimate power shift. The dynamic has been completely inverted. She, who once held the reins of attention, now finds herself chasing a ghost, a man who exists only in her memory. You, however, are fully present in your own life, no longer a participant in her drama, but the calm author of your own narrative. You have learned the most valuable lesson of all, that true strength is not in how loudly you can argue for your value, but in how quietly you can walk away from anyone who refuses to see it. You have stopped negotiating for respect. You simply embody it. And in doing so, you have become emotionally untouchable. Not as a fortress, but as a sovereign, self-contained nation. At peace with its own borders and no longer seeking trade agreements with a chaotic neighbor, your silence is the proof that you have won the only battle that ever truly mattered, the one for your own soul. The final realization does not arrive as a storm, with thunder and lightning to match the chaos of her emotions. Instead, it descends like a deep and silent frost, quieting the landscape of her hope, leaving a crystalline clarity in its wake. It is a quiet, soul-crushing surrender, not to you, but to the unchangeable, objective truth. You are not coming back. This is the moment the last ember of the game dies, and she is left alone in the cold, absolute dark of reality. The performance is over. There is no audience left to fool, not even herself. This acceptance is marked by a profound and unsettling shift in her perception of your indifference. For so long, she interpreted your silence as anger and hibernation, punishment you were meting out that would eventually thaw into communication, into a chance for her to reset the board. But now, she finally understands. Your indifference is not a tactic. It is the conclusion. It is the real closure, and it carries a sting far more potent than any anger could. Anger is hot, reactive, and full of unspent energy. It means you are still emotionally invested, that you still care enough to feel something so volatile. But indifference is a void. It is the absolute zero of emotion. It means you have reached a state of being where she simply no longer registers on your emotional spectrum. You do not hate her. You do not love her. You are, with regards to her, at peace. And that is the most devastating truth she will ever have to face. She realizes with a clarity that feels like a physical blow that you didn't leave to teach her a lesson. You left to reclaim yourself. Your departure was not a strategic move in the relationship. It was an act of self-preservation and self-respect so fundamental that it transcends the entire history you shared. You saw the cost of staying, the slow erosion of your own peace, and you made a choice for your own soul. The man who walked away was the man she knew, but the man who exists now is someone new. He is the man who grew without her. He found his strength, his purpose, and his center in the very silence she never respected, the silence she tried to fill with noise and drama. You have become a complete, self-contained universe, and she is a distant, fading star in a galaxy you have long since traveled beyond. This knowledge leaves a permanent scar. Not a wound that bleeds, but a mark that alters the texture of her being. She is left with the ghost of this understanding, that she lost the only version of herself that ever felt truly, deeply, and securely loved. With you, she was reflected back, not as the manipulative game player or the anxious controller, but as a woman worthy of steadfast devotion. You saw her chaos and offered calm. You saw her tests and offered patience. In the sanctuary of your love, she could, for moments, let her guard down and simply be. Without that reflection, she feels herself coarsening, becoming a more cynical, guarded version of herself. She lost the mirror that showed her her best self, and now she is left with the distorted reflections of shallow admirers and her own critical inner voice. As for you, this ending is not a loss, but a liberation. The silence that once felt like loneliness has become your foundation. It taught you everything words never could. You learned that walking away from a toxic dynamic doesn't make you heartless. It makes you wise. You learned that not every battle deserves your energy, and not every person deserves your depth. You've built a new self in that solitude, forging new habits, a sharper focus, and an unshakable peace. You discovered that true detachment isn't about avoiding love. It's about refusing to lose yourself in it. And in that journey, something incredible happened. You became the man you were always meant to be. Not the one seeking external validation, but the one who validates himself through his purpose and his own quiet company. The same silence that once felt like an absence of love is now recognized as the presence of your own power. You no longer need to be understood by her or by anyone who operates as she did. The frantic need to explain your worth has been replaced by the quiet confidence of simply knowing it. You are finally and irrevocably at home within yourself, and her final, haunting realization is that your peace is the ultimate proof of your transformation, a state of being she can no longer touch, influence, or ever be a part of. And that is the most profound ending of all.